Welcome back, folks. I watched this movie last night, and I had picked it up, and you had seen my thrift shop haul video, and then my wife also broke down each video. We didn't end up watching the one that she picked out, but by myself, I ended up watching this classic, directed by George Stevens, 1953, starring Alan Ladd, Jean Arthur in her last feature cinema role, and Van Heflin, Shane. By the way, this was originally based off of a 1949 book of the same name. The author was stated as saying he liked the movie except for the Alan Ladd character, who was only 5'6", and he didn't feel was dark enough to play the role. So, the other George Stevens movie that I watched in the last couple of years that I watched before I was doing video reviews here on YouTube was Giant, and I had gotten this at the thrift shop in 2020, 2-part VHS. It was still in the shrink wrap, and this is the last film starring James Dean, Rock Hudson, and Elizabeth Taylor. It is a phenomenal movie. This came out in 1956. This movie came out 3 years earlier and is considered by the American Film Institute one of the top 100 films ever made, and it was inducted into the National Film Registry in 1993 as a culturally significant film. It is a Western, and it's loosely based on cattle grazing land war in Wyoming in the late 1890s. It was one of the most expensive Western films to make at the time. It cost around $3 million. It grossed around $9 million at the box office and was considered a success. It has an hour and 58-minute runtime. It was the first film projected in a widescreen format where they didn't crop the picture down. And it was filmed on location in Wyoming, and it has amazing cinematography. I believe it won an Academy Award for cinematography. Very stirring. I would love to see this restored. I don't think seeing it in the 4:3 aspect ratio on video cassette did this film justice. This is a 1997 copy, and it was very shadowed. I would really like to see a remastered, proper widescreen format copy of this. So, again, we're watching movies cheaply, not necessarily the best quality. And I'm glad that I picked it up for 25 cents because I am a very rare 5 out of 5 on this picture. IMDb is 7.7 out of 10. Sorry, 7.6 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes is 97%. Google users, I don't think enough people are watching the classics and typing the reviews. It's 85% because this movie is definitely a 5 out of 5. It is a masterpiece. It is one of the first films to show more realistic violence of being shot by a gun. They had rigged people with wires to get them to move a certain way when they were shot, and they really amplified the sound of gunshots by firing a high-caliber weapon into a trash can to make the gunshot seem more powerful. Interestingly enough, they said that this kind of defined violence in Westerns from here on out. This movie has no rating. It is not rated, and it is tame by modern standards. People do get shot and killed, but it's not really graphic. Yeah. So, with that being said, I'm kind of blanking out here. I'm looking back at my notes. It is shot in the Grand Tetons National Park, and you see them prominently featured in a lot of the backgrounds. That's what I wanted to say. The scenery of this movie is amazing. There's a lot of night shots. The Alan Ladd character was supposed to be a retired gunfighter defending all these homesteaders from evil cattle barons. He hated guns in real life, and they had to do 116 takes for one scene where he was teaching the little boy of one of the ranchers how to shoot a gun properly. And then one of the other main actors, it's a Western obviously, was terrified of horses, and it took multiple takes to show a proper dismount from a horse. There's just a lot of very interesting technical details, which I can't talk about it too long because of a movie like this that's very culturally significant. There is just so much information to include to even talk about. I always think of Jean Arthur. I believe she was in that movie with Jimmy Stewart back in the 30s, Little Shop Around the Corner, if I'm not mistaken. And this was her first color film and her last film at age 50, like I mentioned earlier. There was a very weird connection because he's defending this specific cattle rancher and his wife and kid. But then there was like this weird sexual undertone between him and the Jean Arthur character who's married to the other guy. It was odd, but I picked up on it, and they kind of showed it in one scene where he's leaving to defend the family. They kind of grasp hands, and it's awkward, even though she's married to this other guy. The Shane character and her have a moment, the Alan Ladd character and the Jean Arthur character. The villains, I noticed they made the villains have like all these big bushy beards, and it was this one specific family of cattle barons that were maiming and driving off all these locals off their land, which was a true thing in American history. Just kind of like the railroad robber baron type of guys. There's some dark parts, obviously. We have a long history in this country, but masterfully shot. Very worthy of its 5 out of 5 rating by yours truly, and obviously all those accolades that it won. I believe it said that it won Best Cinematography. Yeah, that's it. It's a brief review today, folks. Check it out. If you've seen it, comment. I'd like to hear your input too. And I would say on a bonus review, without going into too much depth, because it's been about 3 years, this other George Stevens movie is also a 5 out of 5. So 53 and 56, you could watch them back to back, maybe have a movie marathon of George Stevens. And yeah, until then, I'm dropping stuff right out of my hands. We'll see you next time.